Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Stein. I am a student at Touro University, and I wanted to introduce you to my final project. So, the first thing I want to do is kind of take you through the introduction. I want to go back and forth sharing my PowerPoint presentation to just sharing me on the screen so you know where to focus. So, let's get it started. All right, everybody. Hope you got a little jolt from that introduction. My project is designed to meet a 21st century problem using technology. And because I'm on the corporate track, I decided to use my own company that I've been running since 2018, Go for the Show, as a centerpiece for my project. So my project title is called Go for the Show and You Will Never Be Lonely Again. This is using live entertainment, trivia shows to help combat social isolation. I will get into what social isolation is, why it is a problem, and all that other good stuff throughout the project. But I just want to introduce myself real quick. Now this looks like a job for me, so everybody just follow me, 'cause it feels so empty without me. That's right. My name is Dan Stein. I am the face that runs the place, owner and operator of Go for the Show Entertainment. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about myself. First off, as I mentioned, I am a Touro college student pursuing a master's in instructional technology. Professionally, I show host, master of ceremonies, I content create, and I am an audio video editor. I wear many different hats as the owner of this company. I wanted to jump out of the presentation for 1 second here and just address in my own words what this project is all about. We were tasked with meeting a 21st century need using technology. It's interesting because, in my opinion, technology is the cause of the problem that I'm looking to address here. We are talking about social isolation. Now, if you're not sure what social isolation is, it's a little bit different than loneliness. Loneliness is that feeling of being disconnected, feeling like you're alone. Social isolation means that you have a lack of contact. And although this seems like it's a problem that's terrible, just get out there and find some people, the truth is it's really not. Some jobs now are remote jobs where people work at home. You don't have that social component of people that you work with, family members. There's a lot going on. A lot of people think it's easier just to get on a phone, FaceTime, do that thing rather than get out there and see each other. And what's gone on, at least for the last 20 plus years, is that every single year, social connectedness has gone down and social isolation has gone up. That's not my opinion. That is actually a medical fact. There is something out there called the Heart Survey. And what that stands for is Health, Economic, Social Impact of Art Survey. Very clever. This was done in the UK and they polled 5,892 adults. And what happened was they took an informal poll where a person was supposed to record their activity over the course of a normal day. And what they found is that every single year, these people, their social connectedness was going down. They were spending more time alone and less time with other people. Now, there are factors that play into this dynamic. There are economic factors, there are cultural factors, different factors in play. But for the purposes of this study, they took people that had a relatively similar income, similar cultural upbringing. The only real variation in their study was done by age. I'll just give you some of the highlights. And one of the main ones that jumped out at me is that the demographic of 15 to 24-year-olds, their social connectedness has really plummeted since 2003. And I will link the article so you can learn exactly how much. Sorry, I just wanted to switch over to put these headphones on. So, as the Heart Survey concluded, social isolation is on the rise. It is a big problem, but why exactly is it a big problem? Well, it has been proven by the National Institute of Health and the National Institute of Aging that being socially isolated has a negative side effect on your health. People that are socially isolated are more prone to things like heart disease, cognitive decline, and depression. Let's think about why. Heart disease, if you're not socializing with people, you're not necessarily taking care of yourself the way you would. You're not eating right. You may be drinking a little bit more than you should. Cognitive decline. The idea of interacting with other people, relating back and forth, it stimulates your mind rather than just being alone, where you don't have anyone to communicate with and no one to really challenge you from a mental aspect. And then finally, there's depression. And I think that's one that we can all understand. When you're not with people, when you're by yourself, you feel a little depressed. So those are some pretty big health considerations. How can we tackle this 21st century problem? Knowing that this is a health risk and it's a big problem, how can we tackle this issue? The Heart Survey that determined that social isolation was a big issue also did a study to determine what are some live activities that people can engage in to help curb social isolation. And some of the activities they gave were live music, theater, line dancing, pottery classes, essentially anything that people can do where they interact with other people. They are good things for ending social isolation. At Go for the Show, I look at this as an opportunity for how we can get involved and not only help people and meet this 21st century problem, but also as a model for making sure my business is sustainable. So with the help of three hosts that I've hired, we are going to use live trivia shows created by Go for the Show to help reduce social isolation. So we are back to our PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to take you to the next part, which is just the outline, the introduction to our project. And here we go. We got combating social isolation with live entertainment. We got project goals, quality standards for online programs, project objectives, methodology, a host that will address a real world problem using 21st century skills, Google Classroom. I'll take you through the classroom I built, our field study that we did. And finally, I'm going to sum everything up with our conclusion and let everybody know about our field study findings and whether or not we felt that Go for the Show trivia helps combat social isolation. So let's talk about some project goals. Goals for the project. The corporate trainers will be able to run audio video software for existing live and virtual game shows. Not much to show here. This will be on the job training that they will do with me. Obviously, in order to be a show host, they're going to have to do these things, and I will grade them for the work that they're doing in Google Classroom as well as the work they're doing on site. They will have to effectively engage audiences in a live setting for 1 hour and 30-minute intervals. That is exactly how long the trivia show lasts. They have to generate original category ideas for trivia shows. This will be part of their final project. So after they learn how to run a trivia show and to conclude the project, they're going to have to show me that they can create an engaging category. How will I determine if the category is engaging? I will observe them and I will determine whether or not the audience looked engaged. So it's going to be more of a pass-fail. And then finally, they're going to be able to determine if Go for the Show trivia helps combat social isolation. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do that with our field study. We got the INACOL standards. These are the International Association for K through 12 Online Learning. These are the standards I use to help create this training course. We have our instructional standards. Standard C is leadership. If you're going to be a Go for the Show host, you're going to have great leadership skills. You have to facilitate the good time for the consumer. We have standard H, equity and access. That is in regard to having access to an online training program, which we've created in Google Classroom. We have the teaching and learning standards, standard J, curriculum and course design. I designed this training course much the way that a teacher would design a course for their classroom. It starts with the first module and ends with the 8th and final module. Every task gets progressively more difficult and more involved until the host is able to fulfill all the requirements they need to be show ready. We have standard H, assessment of student performance. Some assessments will be done in Google Classroom and other assessments will be more informal and they will be graded by me on site. Project objectives. Corporate trainees will complete the 30-day training course satisfying all the requirements outlined in Google Classroom. They're going to have 30 days to get all the requirements in the classroom completed. They can complete each task at their own timeline. They will be part of a field study that I will conduct to address whether Go for the Show trivia helps reduce social isolation. I'll explain that a little bit more in detail in a few minutes. They will generate a custom trivia show that will be used for a Go for the Show event. Again, that's part of their final project. Methodology. For on-the-job training, I use the ideas outlined in Adult Learning Linking Theory and Practice. I took class EDIN 600, found it very useful, and learned a lot of different ways that adults are able to learn. I incorporated that into my training course. So we're going to talk methodology on the job. So we have non-formal bars and restaurants where our employers employ us to do trivia shows. And then we have the informal, which is daily life setting. I always believe that to train to be a great host, you need to be a student. So when you're out on the streets and you see people talking, what are they talking about? How are they comfortable communicating with other people? Do they like to be at a distance with one another? Do they like to be close? Do they respond to a lot of physical movements using your hands? All these little social cues that I asked the host to pick up on. There's not anything there that's rateable per se. It's just how a host is able to find their own style. And that brings us to social cognitive theory. No host and no customer base, no restaurant, they are alike. You have to learn your surroundings, and that includes yourself. Most importantly, a custom game is developed based on the wants and needs of the consumer. When my hosts developed their own custom game, yes, I wanted them to pick something that they thought they would know a lot about, but I also wanted them to make sure that they picked a subject that their audiences would connect with. And basically, they did that by getting feedback. Andragogy. When I was training hosts, I leaned heavily on their experiences and motivation, which leads to increased job satisfaction, improved personal fulfillment. All these things are very important when you're being a show host. Yes, they're doing this for money, but at the same time, you're never going to be great at this job if you don't want to be great at this job. And part of wanting to be great means getting that intrinsic value from it, that feeling of doing really well, entertaining people. That's something that simply can't be matched. Let's talk methodology off the job. This is one of my favorite things that I learned while attending Touro University, the ADDIE model. I feel like for my trivia show game, I had been using the ADDIE model long before I knew what it was. Because to create a custom trivia show, this is exactly the process that we follow. And it's a circular process. We analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. I asked all my hosts to first analyze when they're creating content for their trivia shows, what is it that they think they can bring to the table as a host producing content? And what do their audience members want? What kind of categories do they prefer? After they analyze what the audience wants, they have to design it. They have to come up with a plan. I asked them to come up with a 3-question category, and then finally they have to develop it using the audio and video editing software, using Microsoft PowerPoint. That is how they develop their category. Then they have to implement it. How do they do that? They do it at the shows. Every host that created a custom category for me was able to use that category at one of their live shows. And then finally evaluate. Not everything you create is going to be the best thing. It's not always going to connect with an audience, and that's okay too. So when you evaluate, you ask yourself, okay, what did I do well here? What could I have done better? Is this something I want to do again? Repeat this category with different questions? Or do I want to scrap it? That happens to me probably say close to 30–40% of the time. Every category is just a one-off because it doesn't resonate the way that we hope that it will. Here are my future hosts. We got Harry. He's my main guy. Then we got Eric. You might look familiar because he's my older brother. He's hosting trivia down in North Carolina. And then finally, we have Tino. My 3 hosts, they were all trained to be certified Go for the Show hosts. They completed the training course with me, and they helped me conduct my field study. Now we're going to talk about addressing a real-world problem. We want to use live trivia shows to reduce social isolation. And we want to promote connectivity, and that's with friends, family, coworkers, and also strangers. We don't want people just to feel connected to the people that they're closest to. We want people to connect with someone they're not thinking about connecting with. Either it's somebody that has trouble finding family, friends, coworkers, or it's just someone that's a bit of an introvert trying to bust out of their shell. A lot of the statistics that you see written here on this page are things that we talked about. I'm going to discuss more in my final paper. There are a lot of learning management systems that I could use for the online course, but I'm very comfortable with Google Classroom. I was an elementary school teacher for a long time, so I decided to create the course here. So let's take a look at our Google Classroom. Here's my Google Classroom. It's not very fancy. Simply called Go for the Show Training Course. I'm going to scroll to the very beginning. I have a little welcome message right here. Needs assessment. Then we start with module one, thinking like an event coordinator. I could scroll up. You can see all the different modules here. I want to save some time. I don't really want to spend this entire project explaining every single lesson and what needs to be done. I do, however, want to highlight module number 7 that says do trivia shows, promote social connectivity. That's the assignment. And here is where we're going to find the customer evaluation assessment. Now, this assessment was filled out one of two ways by our consumers. One of the 4 hosts here either emailed it to the people that were playing at participating locations, or we had hard copies for everybody because, quite frankly, it is hard to get people of a certain age to do these things online. So we offered hard copies as well. And here's just some of the questions. There are 30 total, really 29, because one of the questions is which host gave you this form. Again, I'll get more into this in a little bit. What I wanted to do here is I really just wanted to show you a little bit about what goes on with the classroom, because it's important that you see it's constructed. I will, however, link the course map. So if you want a complete detail about what every lesson was, you can look there. Unfortunately, I can't send invites to this classroom because you need a email address. That's Go for the Show Inc. And I have to pay for those. And no offense, but I'm not doing that. Okay, so moving along. We have our final project sample. All 3 trainees were required to create a custom team trivia show. We have Harry. He did Blue Shirt Banter, New York Rangers trivia. We have Eric, who did the Bright Lights of Broadway, fun facts about Broadway shows. Fun little fact about this one, he was not planning on constructing that category. It kind of came up while he was hosting in North Carolina, and he created something pretty cool there. We have Tino with this pick, fun facts about the NFL draft. Obviously, a lot of my guys are trying to write what they know as they're just starting out. This is totally fine. As part of the final project, I had each of the 3 trainees create a video showing me how exactly they constructed their category to prove to me that they were able to do it. They had to take me on a tutorial. But I'm just going to give you maybe the first 30 seconds to a minute of what Harry did, talk about it, and link his whole video with this project.
What's going on? My name is Harry. I'm a trainee here at Go for the Show. Today I'm going to show you how to go through making a presentation using Microsoft PowerPoint, using the ADDIE method that Dan has shown me over the past few months. We're going to analyze, design, develop. This way we can implement into the bar this week to evaluate for next week so we can improve and get better as we go along.
Okay, so I'm going to just jump out of the presentation for a second. I wanted to give you a little taste of what Harry did there. Obviously, I've been ramming the ADDIE model down everybody's throat right now because honestly, it's just the perfect way for us to create what we're trying to do here. Harry did a tremendous job. He's one of my main guys. He's an excellent host. Let's jump back into the PowerPoint and talk about the field study that we did. When I was going over Google Classroom, I talked about the customer needs assessment survey. That was 30 questions to get a sense of whether or not this live trivia show is helping with social isolation. And the results that we had were pretty interesting. I'm going to go through some of the results that we had. I made charts so it's easier to see. I highlighted some of the things that were outliers, and I'll explain that in a second.
All my life I've been searching for something, but I'm getting closer to the prize at the end of the rope.
So I've been talking about this field study for a little while now, and let's talk about exactly what we did here. So the field study was essentially that 30-question customer evaluation needs assessment I alluded to back in Google Classroom. I know we didn't get a full chance to read what was there, but the long and short of it is we gave 30 questions that gave us a sense of how playing Go for the Show trivia helped with social isolation. And also we got a sense of how socially isolated people were before they were playing this game. We asked a whole lot of questions and we came up with a chart filled with responses. For this study, I wanted to have an equal amount of people for each demographic. So we did a male study, we did a female study. And my goal was to get 60 people in four different demographics. Now, we were able to get 60 people for three demographics, but our oldest demographic, we were unable to get more than 30. So there's only 30 men and women for our oldest demographic, which is why the chart might look a little bit off. So now I want to take you through what we found out with our field study. So let's take a look at our first chart here. And all the charts are going to look similar, and it's a little busy. So let me explain exactly what I did here. We have an average for everybody when we ask questions. We polled 210 men across four different age demographics, and we polled 210 women across four different age demographics. Here are the age demographics. We have 18 to 25. And if you remember at the earlier part of this presentation, I talked about how the youngest generation was most at risk for social isolation. They constitute this demographic right here. I didn't want to go lower than 18 because I felt it would be a little bit inappropriate to get feedback from people that weren't 18 years old. We have 26 to 34, 35 to 54, and 55 plus. You'll notice the yellow arrows and the red arrows. Post-pandemic social engagement, you'll see that people 18 to 25, close to 70%, 68% of people said they felt more socially engaged post-pandemic, which is a pretty healthy number. But if you look here, every other demo fell short. They felt less than 50% more engaged. And I think that's staggering. So this is from the male side. Let's take a look at the female side. It's actually very similar right here. 56% of females from 18 to 25 felt more. Every other demographic was less. And then you look at the 55 plus demo here, and that's really, really alarming how they felt more socially isolated, but it is understandable. Pandemic, it's at risk to your health. If you think your health is at risk, you're not going to be willing to socialize very much. Our next one, my social engagement. So the question that we ask people is, do you feel more socially engaged playing Go for the Show trivia? And the results were interesting. The people that were 18 to 25 that were males, only 38% of people said they felt more socially engaged playing Go for the Show trivia. That's bad on our part. It means we're not doing our job. But then if you look here, you have the 26 to 34 demo. We had 14 say yes, and we had 11 say no. We had 19 say yes for the 35 to 54 demo, only 10 say no. And then finally, the 55 plus, they felt way more socially engaged. We had 8 people say yes, and only 3 people say no. And all these greens right here, those were people that didn't have a feeling one way or another. They were the same level of socially engaged, whether they played or they didn't play. If you look at the females, again, the 18 to 25 is low, but every other demo, we could see they felt more socially engaged playing Go for the Show trivia, and that's the goal. If you look right here, the 26 to 34 demographic, 80% of people said they felt more socially engaged. That's incredible. Connecting with family, friends, and coworkers. Again, we said it was important for people to feel less socially isolated, and part of the way to do that is by promoting connectivity with people they know. These are family, friends, and coworkers. In the 18 to 25 demo, 55% of people said that they felt more connected to family, friends, and coworkers. This is a little bit of a different question because now we're asking if they felt more connected to the people that are playing with. So they may not have enjoyed the idea that they were playing the game, but they did find that they were connecting more with family members, friends, and coworkers. And as hosts, we notice this sort of thing. So these results don't really surprise me. If you look at the 26 to 34-year-old males, big numbers here, 35 to 54, still a heavy number. And again, the 55 plus demo, 68% of people said that they felt more connected with family, friends, and coworkers. It's a big number. This is from the female side, 53%, which is good. The important thing here is that it's always over 50%, which leads us to believe that what we're doing with our trivia show is working for people family, friends, coworkers. Now let's talk about strangers. This one was an interesting find because a lot of times when you go out, it's not likely that you're going to seek out a person that you don't know. So let's take a look at the results here. Connecting with strangers. The 18 to 25 demo, probably the way things were trending, this is not all that surprising. Only 28.57% said yes. When people are young, they're really, they're not looking to connect with people they don't know. I mean, it's not surprising to me. That number's low. 26 to 34 more, 35 to 54 more, 55 plus more. This is all on the male side, and on average 55.98%. That's pretty good. When 55 close to 56% of people say they're connecting more with strangers, I would say that's a very strong indicator that Go for the Show trivia is helping with social isolation. We have it from the female side. Again, the female side, every single demo other than 55 plus said that they connected better with strangers. Not really sure why that is, that 55 plus, but I guess if you're older and female, you're less likely to put yourself out there. I'm not judging. That was just our field study and the results that we found. So, as you can see, Go for the Show trivia really did help people connect better with family, friends, coworkers, and even strangers.
So I took you through a lot of information on those charts there. All that information was ascertained by the customer needs survey that we gave out to all the people. With that customer needs survey, we got enough information to figure out if we addressed our 21st century issue. There was a lot of information on those charts, and I ran through them quickly. And when I send over the presentation itself, you can evaluate it more closely, kind of see exactly what the findings were, rather than me stop and just waste everybody's time by going through it the entire time. But I did a summary, a conclusion of the project to figure out if what we did worked here. The host did everything they needed to do. They're hosting at different locations. I wanted to focus more on our conclusion for our field study because that's really what we were trying to address. The hosts were merely just tools to get us to where we need to be, to kind of see if we can address this 21st century issue. And here's what we found out. Here's part one of our conclusion. We had 420 responses. Of the 420, 210 were men, 210 were women. For the demographics, 18 to 25, we had 120 people, 60 men, 60 women. Same for 26 to 34 and 35 to 54. As for 55 plus, we didn't get as many responses to the survey as we would have liked, so we capped it off at 30 men and 30 women. So it's a little bit less in that age demographic. And here's what we found out. Of the 420 responses, 58% of the responders stated that Go for the Show trivia made them feel more social. 68% of the responders stated that Go for the Show trivia made them feel more connected with family, friends, and coworkers. This is a big one for me because a lot of times if you're coming to a bar or restaurant, you're going there with people, and you ever notice how sometimes that even when you're out dining with people, you're not really connecting the way that you used to. People are on their phones. They're kind of keeping to themselves. It's a little bit sad. So knowing that 68% of people were connecting with family, friends, and coworkers, that's huge, because if you're doing that, you're not feeling as socially isolated. 54% of the responders stated that Go for the Show trivia made them feel more connected with strangers. When I put this question into the survey, I didn't really have an expectation for what I thought a great number would be, a strong indicator. But the fact that over 50% of people claim that this is the case, I'd say that's a very big win for Go for the Show trivia, because it's not easy to go out when you're a certain age and connect with people you don't know. And the fact that they're doing it over a game, that says a lot. And I attribute that to the shared media experiences, videos, music. There are studies done that suggest that when people hear something that's familiar to them, it helps them bond even with people they do not know. I'm going to discuss that a little bit more in the paper that I write. Yes, let's talk about those young folks, shall we? These are research anomalies. I'm going to go through a couple, but really where I want to start is right here in this white bubble. The 18 to 25 demographic. This is the only demo that reported feeling more social during the pandemic than less social. I found that to be an interesting little nugget in our research. We're going to talk about some more data that I found to be interesting. 40% of the 18 to 25 demo felt more social playing the game, while 64% of the players 26 plus felt more social. Again, I alluded to this a little bit earlier. I think the problem is that people that are 18 to 25, they're technology natives. They've grown up in a world that has had nothing but technology. And when I say technology, I mean social media, FaceTime, Skype in the early days. Unfortunately, I think a lot of these people are just finding it difficult to be more social. That's just would be my guess based on the data. But people that are 26 and older, which let's face it, that's a very large part of the population, 64% of them felt more social playing Go for the Show trivia. 72% of the players 26 plus felt more social. Again, this is an extension off my earlier point that the older you are, the more likely you're going to use a game like this to feel connected. I spoke earlier about how people in the 55 plus demo were having difficulty being more social post pandemic. And 22% of those people felt more social post pandemic, which is an alarmingly low number. It's really sad. But of the people that were polled, 62% of those people felt more social playing Go for the Show trivia. This was the part of the project that I feel I was most pleased with because that demographic is a problem area. It shows me that these people want to be social and maybe they just don't have an outlet. And I think that when you get a little bit older and you start losing touch with friends and family, it's hard to put yourself out there. And if you have something like this, a game where you can share a experience with people you know or with strangers, then that's a good thing. So those were our anomalies. Was our real world issue addressed? All the numbers that I gave you on those charts and the ones that I just went over on our conclusion slides support that. In my estimation, 50% was the barometer. If more people felt more social as a result of playing the game, I consider that to be a success. And in most cases, we blew that number away. I'm happy I did this project because although I've been hosting trivia for a long time and I strongly suspect that it was helping people feel more connected, what I learned doing this project is that the game, it is most effective for people that felt more socially isolated. So the more isolated you feel, the more likely it is that you're going to engage because you're playing this game. And I think that's why we missed on the 18 to 25 demo. 18 to 25-year-olds, I don't think we're having trouble socializing, at least according to the research. They didn't really feel that the pandemic made them feel less social. It was really the older demographics that were having trouble after the pandemic. The 26 and older crowd really benefited by playing Go for the Show trivia. So I want to thank everyone for hanging with me all this time. I hope you learned something about Go for the Show trivia and what it can do. And if you are ever on Long Island and you're looking for Long Island's best trivia, please look us up, Go for the Show Entertainment, and I'll see you down the road.